Shannon Popkin. I'm so happy to have you back on the Compare
I
To
love it.
podcast.
I am too. It's
And
great to be back.
today we're talking about something. I don't know. Do people like to talk about this? Um, are you a little bit judgy? I feel like I'm not judgy at all. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, that was totally judgy. So today we're
hmm
going to talk about that. You,
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think it is something we don't really talk about. We do it in our heads, or
right.
maybe with a trusted friend who's going to chime in, and judge with us.
And
But
agree.
it's
Yeah.
not, yeah, but it's not something we talk about enough, I think.
So let's just start with the basics
Okay.
because I feel like I've heard this a lot. My husband has taught sermons on the Matthew passage, but it's like in Christendom at large, culturally, people are like, we're not supposed to judge. Do not
hmm
judge. The Bible says do
Yeah.
not judge. Is that actually true?
Well, it is and it isn't, because look at Jesus said both. He said, do not judge, and he said, judge with righteous judgment.
Uh,
So it's got to be a little nuanced then,
right,
right?
right.
And I think the world is wanting to say right now, don't judge. That's your
Mm,
commandment, don't judge. And what they mean is like erase all those lines between right and wrong so
mm,
that we can just like link arms and be
mm,
like create this judgy free utopia already. Like, can
yeah.
we please just stop all the judgment and the condescending
Mm,
superiority? And so for that last part, yes, let's please
mm,
stop all the
mm,
condescending
yeah.
superiority. But as Christians, it's not our place, is it, to erase those lines between right and wrong? And so I think it's been like conflated into something that's not what Jesus is saying in the Sermon on the Mount.
Yeah.
And I mean, even just look at what he says. Um, he says, do not, this is Matthew 7, do not judge so that you will not be judged. For you will be judged by the same standard but through which you judge others, and you'll be measured by the same measure that you use. And then he goes into that whole like get the splinter out of your eye
Hmm.
thing, right? And then, but look at that. He says, hypocrite, first take the beam of wood out of your eye, and then you will be able to see clearly to take the splinter out of your brother's eye.
Hmm.
So the point is not to just get that splinter out and stop judging. The point is to
Yeah.
get the splinter out so that I can see clearly to
Right.
help somebody else with their sin.
Yeah.
Otherwise, and so repeatedly, I think with the do not judge is a warning about hypocrisy.
Mm,
And so what is hypocrisy? Well, that's judging you for the thing I'm doing right now.
right.
The same, I'm doing
Right.
exactly the same thing. And that's really, I think what we could maybe categorize this is a command, but it's really coupled with a warning, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. And I think it's just really good for people to hear. Like, I mean, if you actually read past, judge not, he does say for the way, whatever measure you use to judge will be. So it's like, wait. He said, don't judge, and then you're going to judge. So,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
and then
Exactly.
and
And
then thinking about fruit, right? Like we're supposed
yes.
to
Yeah.
judge
That's further
fruit,
on in that
right?
passage. Like, yeah. And so it talks about, um, let's see, be on your guard against false prophets. They come in sheep clothing, and you're supposed to recognize people by their fruit, which, in other words, you're supposed to judge them by the fruit of their lives. Like there are people who aren't who they say they are
Yeah.
hypocrites, right? And so you have to have a discernment and be able to judge who they actually are based on their fruit. You're going to recognize them by their fruit. But back to that earlier part where you were talking about whatever you use to measure out your judgment, or I like to turn it and say whatever size scoop you're going to measure your mercy with. So I've got
Mm.
these two like scoop sizes here.
Okay.
Those who are on YouTube can see.
Yep.
But like I've got a big normal size scoop, that you might scoop out like in a candy jar or something. And I've got this itty bitty
Teeny
30
little.
a 30
Is
second
that
of
even
yeah, of a teaspoon. It's
teaspoon?
very teeny tiny. And so, yeah, I think it's a good question to ask ourselves. Like, what am I
Mm.
going to use when someone has wronged me? How
Mm.
am I going to respond? Am I going to just like scoop out judgment with this huge scoop,
Mm.
or, thinking of mercy? What if I
Yeah.
scooped that? Like what, and whatever size I choose is what the Lord is going to use. He's just not okay with hypocrisy. And so I
Yeah.
think keeping that in mind is really helpful and really important.
Yeah, that's really good. And I don't know. I don't know how much you've like thought about this angle, or maybe you have even written about it, but thinking it, like I talk to women all the time, they're like, oh no, like I give grace to other people all the time. Like I'm, I don't judge people. It's just myself. It's
Yeah.
myself. Like the scoop when
Yes.
I like measure myself
Hmm.
is,
Hmm.
heaps of, judgment.
Hmm.
Um, and I always kind of challenge them. I'm like, I don't like, I hear you saying that, but I don't know if that's actually true.
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
because the standard that we hold to ourselves to, a lot of times we do end up kind of subtly holding other people to that standard.
Yeah.
Maybe we don't say it out
Yeah.
loud, but I don't know.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts around that?
Well, again, I think it's both. You know,
Hmm.
I do think there are times that we are so hard on ourselves,
Hmm.
but we're hard on ourselves because we'd really like to be perfect. Like
Hmm.
we're judging ourselves so harshly, but there's this upside down pride. It's like, I just wish that I was the one that everyone was admiring and
Right.
that was doing it all right. Or with our sin, like, do we really believe that our sin is cared for on the cross? Like,
Hmm.
that it is wiped clean, that Jesus's blood washes us white as snow. Do we truly believe that?
Yeah.
Because Jesus was judged in our place. He was the
Hmm.
judgment of God. The wrath of God fell on Jesus, and he hung on that cross out of mercy for us. And our God is too just to make
Hmm.
us pay for what Jesus has already paid for, right?
Hmm.
He
Yeah.
doesn't, that would be a very unjust God to
Hmm.
hold us harshly with condemnation because Jesus already paid for it, right? And
Hmm.
so, um, do we believe that? Those
Yeah.
of us who do judge ourselves with extreme harshness,
Hmm.
like, do I really believe that Jesus died on that cross, that he
Right.
took my sin on him? And if so, then no, that's a misplaced shame,
Yeah.
misplaced judgment on myself.
Yeah.
But then I think you're right because I do think, maybe there are times, and I kind of waffle back and forth. I oscillate between judging myself harshly, and again, it's just like this wounded pride of like, oh, I did it, I did something so shameful, I did it again, or I can't get it right. But then I kind of enjoy and this is the part where we just don't talk about Heather. you know
This is gonna be good. Everyone's turning up their volume right
Well,
now.
I know. Yeah. Well, there's this enjoyment that we have of other people not doing it right, of other
Mm.
people falling, of like
Hmm.
I think we get these little judgy boosts of pride when
Hmm.
like, oh, look at them. Can you believe?
Hmm.
Like, and we have all this disgust and contempt in our hearts. And the finger of judgment always points down. It
Hmm.
always points down from this
Hmm.
elevated, self-exalting position.
Hmm.
And so I think when we're judging ourselves, there's a pride component, but when we're judging other people, there's also a different sort of pride component.
Yeah.
And so in both aspects, really, I think it's looking at ourselves with the right lens, the right evaluation, and then also doing that with other people,
Yeah.
and it really requires humility.
Yes. Yes. I think most of our problems would be solved if we just could always be humble.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I really think that that's what people are reacting to when they say don't
Hmm.
judge.
Hmm.
Don't judge me. Don't,
Hmm.
don't. What they're reacting to is the pride and the condescending
Hmm.
superiority that they see in us, and it's legitimate.
Hmm.
I think even, I think everybody's kind of judgy, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
The stats say that non-believers criticize Christians for being too
Hmm.
judgy, but I think the whole world is kind of
Hmm.
judgy. But
Absolutely.
I do
Yeah.
think that non-believers have a point when they look at Christians and say, "You guys are so judgy,"
Hmm.
because we are.
Hmm.
We're so. But in that, the component that I feel like the Lord wanted me to talk about in this book, Heather, is just like that condescension, like that exalting of myself. And as I'm looking down at the world,
Yeah.
and I mean, Jesus said or Paul in First Corinthians says, "What business is it of mine to judge outsiders? Don't judge
Mm,
those who are, don't you I'm sorry, don't you judge those who are inside? God judges outsiders."
mm,
So look at that. We've got some categories there. We are to, when we earlier we said judge with
mhm,
righteous judgment, but that's an inside thing.
mhm,
We are to look at each other's fruit, and we are, and like Matthew 18, we are to talk to each other
mhm.
when we see habitual sin. But for the world, like we got to be
Yeah.
careful
Yeah.
because we're told not to judge. And like, what are we expecting?
Yeah.
Why would we expect the world to be different?
Right. Well, it's like what you said. I mean, there's absolute truth. And so we're not saying like, oh, we'll just accept everything and, it's your truth, my truth, his truth,
Yeah,
her
no,
truth.
exactly.
It's not that,
It's his truth,
but
right?
it's God's truth, but God's judging them, right?
Hmm.
They, you know,
Yeah.
our ask, I think, our invitation, if you will, our command is to love,
Hmm.
right? And Jesus
Yeah.
walked with sinners
Yeah.
and talked with sinners and ate
Right.
with sinners. And
Jesus truly loved
yeah,
his enemies.
yeah,
And if we're judging those that we like, and,
mm,
and they're not our enemies, they're God's enemies. Like that's what
right.
I think you were just saying is like
Yeah,
the judgment is going to come from God upon them.
yeah,
They're God's enemies, and He wants us to love them in,
yeah.
And so one of the things that I've thought about as I was approaching this topic is we can get it all right. Like I actually have some appendixes in the back of this book that talk about like which category do these different people or these
Mm,
different situations belong in. And I looked at all the teachings of Paul and Jesus, and I compiled, some pretty good ways to think about it. But I did that maybe 10 years ago. I studied all of or maybe even longer, 15 years ago. I studied all the verses about judge, don't judge. And I put together this tidy little chart, and I created it for my Bible study group, and I handed
mm,
it all out. But I think, Heather, after I got done with that, I was even more judgy because now I could judge with precision who was doing it wrong and make sure I was doing it all right. And
uh-huh,
so,
uh-huh.
with that in mind, I think, I wanted to come at this looking at stories of the Bible.
Okay.
And so I don't want to, it's not to the exclusion of all the New Testament teachings, but I wanted us to look at stories because stories help us deal with the heart of the matter. And
Hmm.
that really is what we need to think about is our heart posture.
Yeah.
And so, thinking of people like who are going to be judged. Like, what is
Mm,
our heart toward them?
mm,
And so, like, think about the story of the flood,
mm,
Noah and the flood. Think about all those people who were wiped away.
mm,
That's the first story that I wanted to deal with in the book because it really sets up who is this judge
mm,
that we all answer to? Who
mm,
is God? And God's response, he grieved when he looked
mm,
out and saw evil spreading, and it had spread so far that there was only one left.
mm,
No, Noah was he was
mm,
the only blameless righteous man. I mean, I think maybe even in his family, like the
mm,
whole world had caved into evil and darkness, and it was just a horrible time in history. And so, the connotation is violence, and so
mm,
there's two sides of the sword of violence. So people were not only harsh and violent and evil in that way, but the people were getting hurt, and the Lord
mm,
looks out and he sees all of this, and his heart was grieved. He is a
mm,
judge who cries,
mm,
he's got tears over
mm.
what he sees. And that, I think, right there is different than what I
Yeah.
see in a lot of judgy Christians.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's just and holy, and so he, has to be true to his character, but he still cares.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like both are true. I think today people would like to say, well, no, like we have the New Testament. The Old Testament is all
Mm,
about judgment and harshness,
mm,
but the New Testament, look at Jesus. He's so merciful. Yes, that's true. But it's not as though we've got two halves of the story, judgment and mercy. No,
Yeah.
it's judgment and mercy woven through the whole thing. Like that's why I wanted to start with the flood story,
Hmm.
because this is a story of judgment. And Jesus refers back to that story, the story of the flood. And he's like, it's going to be just like that, where there
Yeah.
are people who are going to be washed away with judgment and they didn't
Yeah.
even see it coming. And so
Yeah.
he's warning them, he's warning about judgment. But if we look back at that story of the flood, don't just look at the flood waters. There's also an ark, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's where the whole story has the spotlight. If you I spoke on this topic a few weeks back, and I put a slide up and I showed them, here's Genesis 6 through 9. And the black lettering, that's all the verses that have to do with the judgment of the flood and everything.
Hmm.
But the white lettering, the light colored font, that is all of the parts that are about the ark and the plans moving forward, and the animals and the food and the
Hmm.
construction and all. I mean, that's where the spotlight, that's where God's spotlight is on this story. He wants us to know that he is a God of judgment,
Hmm.
but what has his heart, what he wants for us to know, the thing he most wants us to know, is about his mercy. Look at his
Hmm.
mercy on these people. Because what we
Yeah.
find out at the end of the story of the flood is Noah was not this hero. He was not the
Hmm.
savior.
Hmm.
He gets drunk, and so it's like almost we see like a repeat of the story of Adam, where there's
Hmm.
fruit and there's nakedness and there's shame. It's like it's
Hmm.
a replay. So Noah is not the savior of the
Yeah.
story,
Yeah.
but Noah is shown such mercy,
Mm.
and what really makes him stand out is he's the one who walks with God, and
Mm.
that's all of us. God doesn't give us this list of rules apart from him. He wants us to walk and talk with him and to learn a
Yeah.
new way to live. But even so, we're going to fall short, just like Noah, and he makes a way with this ark. And so it's this beautiful story of judgment and mercy.
Yeah.
Yet it's the mercy rises above his judgment.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of tying that back to what we were talking about just a minute ago with like perfectionism and really wanting to get it all right or wanting to do everything perfect. And kind of, I mean, another way to say this is kind of like not wanting to need the cross in a way,
Yeah.
because I'd rather
No.
just make sure that I could do it all myself. But I think what you just pointed out, like the illustration from Noah is the walking with God.
Hmm. Yeah.
The
We
walking with God, like that, we're still like caught in the like law. I want to do perfect. And he's saying, walk with me, walk humbly with me, like Micah's.
Exactly.
Yeah. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
That was from the beginning. That was God's
Yeah.
intention. That was his
Yeah.
heart. Is he wanted Adam and Eve to walk with him. Look at that tree, it was called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's like a good judgment tree, right?
Hmm.
And he didn't give
Yeah.
them that fruit. He kept
Yeah.
that fruit from them
Mm.
because he wanted them to walk and talk with him, to
Yeah.
have good judgment, right? And to
Yeah.
understand wisdom in the world. And they wanted the fruit. They wanted the fruit
Mm.
to the exclusion of walking with God. They
Mm.
just wanted it for themselves. They wanted the knowledge, the wisdom, the understanding apart from God. And that's the fall, right?
Yeah.
And so the redemption has to do with returning to walking with God. I've heard it said that here in the West, if you ask somebody, well, let me just ask you, Heather,
Okay.
how did Adam and Eve first sin? What did they do?
Well, I think I know the right answer. They disobeyed God.
And
Is that the right answer?
disobeyed and
And ate the fruit. Is
ate the
that?
fruit. That's how we look at it. But
Uh-huh.
if you ask somebody in the Middle East, what they'll tell you, what did they first do? They stopped walking and talking with God because they're a
Mm.
more collectivist culture, and they put more emphasis on the ways that we're influenced or that we influence one another. And so we tend to think more individualistically, right?
Yeah.
And we look at Noah and we think, oh, he had this standout righteousness. That's why God gave him the plans for the ark. It's
Mm.
because he has this spine and he does right and he's going to get the right outcome. But that's not how someone with a Middle Eastern mindset would look at it. They would be
Mm.
like, okay, everybody else has fallen to sin. This man has got to be influenced by, he's got to have outside help. And that's
Yeah.
what the next verse says. Noah walked with God.
Mm.
But I want to go back to your point about I think we want to just have, give me the right and wrong. Give me the
Mm.
list. Like, and in fact, I think we would prefer that walking with Jesus today, right? Would you just
Hmm.
tell me what's right and wrong? Like, should I homeschool? Should I public school? Should I
Hmm.
spank my kids? Should I put them in timeout? Should I, like,
Right.
I'll give me the list, and I'll get myself to the right side of every list.
Hmm.
What's modest, what's immodest, what's
Hmm.
the right movies to watch, what's not allowed. Just give me the list and I'll take care of it
Yeah.
versus walking and talking with Jesus
Yeah.
to have him give us this good judgment. It was never intended for us to just know right from wrong apart from God. It's
Mm.
always from within the context of this relationship. And I think we tend to judge other people based on, like, we get our lines and we know the right and wrong line, and then we not only maybe draw our own lines. We see, okay, here's God's line, and I'm going to back up 10 feet and draw
Hmm.
my line, and then I'm going
Hmm.
to judge the people who cross it. You and I were talking about the topic of young adults and dating because we both
Mm.
have young adult kids. And there's a trend right now to be super judgy about dating,
Mm.
like whether or not you should be on online apps or whether or not you should date someone who, like, these young adults that I know were telling me about this podcast that they listen to, and the woman, I'm sure she's just a lovely woman, and I love the ways that she's discipling these girls, but she kind of adds these, like, never date a guy who doesn't read his Bible 7 days a week,
Mm.
like that sort of thing. And
Mm.
my heart is like, well, what about the guy who, like, I think, Heather, you said your husband came to faith as a
Like
20, what was it,
27. Yeah, he was
27-year-old.
27.
So,
Hmm.
and when did you meet him?
I met him at 30.
At
So,
30?
yeah.
And at that point, was he reading his Bible every day?
I don't really know. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know that I
Well,
was reading my Bible every
I know.
day.
See, I wasn't reading my Bible every
So
day at
I
20.
don't think I would have
Never.
held him to
And
that
so,
standard.
yeah. But I think we hold people to these standards that it's like, well, what are you tethering yourself to?
Mm.
Your list,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
right and wrong and, like, good judgments? Or are you tethering
Yeah.
yourself to Jesus? Because Jesus may ask you to marry some guy who only reads his Bible on the weekends. But is your hope, like, where's your hope?
Right.
Your hope is that, yeah, he's tethered to Jesus. He's
Yeah.
walking and talking with the Lord. I'm walking and talking with the Lord. And that's our hope.
Yeah.
Not that we're doing it all right, because I guarantee you at the end of that marriage aisle, there are some surprises awaiting.
Right.
Um, and our hope has to be in Christ.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. Well, let me just back up a second. So you wrote a book, and it's called Kinda Judgy. Like, and I know you explained, doing outlining all the scripture for your Bible study
Yeah.
group. But like, was there something like present day that you like, I don't know, did God just like convict you of like, oh, I'm being judgmental. I need to look into this? Or was there something going on that you were like, this is what I want to write a book about?
Yeah. Well, let me back up and just tell you how I grew up.
Okay.
I grew up in a super fundamentalist
Hmm.
environment. We were very aware of the lines
Hmm.
between right and wrong, and
Uh-huh.
very aware of the people who stepped over
Hmm.
them. I have this memory of sitting on a bus with my friends from youth group, and we are processing the righteous indignation burning in our 15-year-old hearts because a boy from our youth group had asked a girl from our school to a horrors, a movie.
Uh-huh.
And so we were just outraged because we just knew that he had blown our testimony. We were
Hmm.
outraged. Never
Hmm.
mind that this girl was a believer. She just went to a different denomination.
Uh-huh.
But, and I don't think we could have told you why it was wrong to go see a movie, but it was like that was one of the lines that
Hmm.
our group that we were part of, like, we just knew that that
Yeah.
was wrong, that was going to ruin our testimony. And then now I go to see movies all the time. So,
Hmm.
like, if it's not grounded again in, like, what God says, that's where we can go awry. And so growing up in that sort of a situation, in that sort of a context, I always knew that I was kind of judgy. I sensed it in myself and I didn't like it in myself. But I think honestly, the more I've walked with the Lord, the more temptation there is, right? Because now I know with more clarity, what is right, what is wrong. I'm someone who I spend a lot of hours with my Bible open on an average day, and I can tell you all the ways, and yet I just sense in my heart that there's a drift. Like
Mm,
I am not responding the way that Jesus has, that he
mm,
did. Um, and so I think for me, looking at these stories of the Bible, it was like as I was studying the stories, the Lord was exposing that heart posture.
mm.
And I got to tell you, like writing the book, oh, I have never been more tempted to judge people. Like it's like, oh, just this intense, like I was losing sleep because all the Lord, I think he tests us with our message.
Mhm, mhm,
And I think the enemy wants to, come at us. I said that wrong. The Lord doesn't tempt us. Did I say tempt? He tests
I
us.
think
The
you said test,
devil,
yeah.
the devil tempts us. And I think probably both were happening.
Mhm,
But in my day-to-day life, Heather, I have this extreme temptation to hold court in my head and list out all the
mhm,
ways I'm right and all the ways you're wrong. And it's like
mhm,
fed by my pride. It's like I
mhm,
want to know that I'm doing it all right. And I
mhm.
really find this like this it's again it's embarrassing to say but like this boost of pride when I can show you that you're doing it all wrong. Now these are not things I would say to you. It's
Right.
all very private. It's all a very private matter in my home,
You've
in
just
some
gotten to see the
private.
inside of Shannon's head right here today.
Exactly. It's awful. It's awful. But yeah, as the Lord has exposed that, it's like, okay, I don't want to be this person that I'm becoming. And I think, maybe we've all met somebody like that's super judgy and
Yeah.
harsh as an older person.
Yeah.
The older we get, these things tend to to grow in our
Yeah.
hearts. And I want to be more like Jesus. He was
Yeah.
so, so merciful. He was so kind. And so that's really what was on my heart. I felt like
Mm,
maybe I'm the right person because I get it. I get it from
mhm,
inside those judgy circles. And
mhm,
I know the temptation and I just am, just kind of calling us to consider like, I think we're all kind of judgy,
mhm.
but let's have an eye on our hearts. Let's have an eye
Yeah.
on what is happening in our hearts.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe the category and that you and I both fall in, but I think a lot of listeners probably fall in too, is like the good girl category,
Yeah. Yep.
right? Where it's
Yep.
like, well, I follow all the rules.
Yeah.
I do all
Well,
the
and then
things.
as the good girl, whenever you feel judged, so that's probably I should have said that earlier. What tempts me more than anything
Mm,
to judge is when I feel judged. I feel judged
mm,
and become judgy. It's just like this
mm,
chain reaction. Because you're
mm,
right, I am the good girl. And
mm.
everybody needs to know that about me. Like I'm doing it whole right. And if you're gonna contend with that, well then I might have some things to say about you in my courtroom.
Right, right,
So, but
right.
court
And
is adjourned, right? We don't need to
yeah,
spend any more time in there.
well, because we miss grace,
Mm,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Like, I mean, I think that's a hard thing for us good girls, we good girls, like my parts of
Yeah,
speech, right? But it's
yeah,
hard for us
it is. Yeah,
because it's like, well, I'm actually pretty good.
yeah. But there again, are we like go reverting back to the lines versus
Hmm.
walking with Jesus,
Right,
right?
right,
Because the closer we get to Jesus, the more aware of our failures,
right,
our flaws. Honestly,
right,
like the more spiritually mature I've become, it's not as though I'm less aware of any sin in my life. No,
hmm,
I'm more aware.
right.
It's just like I want to be perfect and I
Yeah,
don't want there to ever be an exposing
right.
of imperfection. And so, but as I walk with the Lord, those things that I do, the ways, like for now, if I blow up at my husband or my kids, I can spend some serious time in just, how can I be this way after all these years? Those are my old ways. I want to be
Yeah.
healed. I want to be, but that just leads me back to, look, I need mercy.
Hmm.
Mercy is not receiving the judgment that I do deserve.
Mm.
And so implied in needing mercy is that I'm wrong, that I have wronged, that I am
Mm.
wrong. So implied in that is I by saying I need mercy, there's a humility in that.
Hmm.
And that leads me back to Jesus and
Yeah,
back to that cross where he
yeah,
spread his arms wide
right.
on that cross, not because he was too weak. Some people thought he was too weak to
Mm,
come down from that cross, but
mm,
no, he was too merciful. And so
yeah.
I just go back and I picture him with those arms wide open because he wanted to receive me.
Right.
And that's the beautiful story that I'm part of.
Mm,
So
yeah.
yeah, I don't want to be this good girl who doesn't need
Yeah.
mercy. I want to, right?
Right.
That's like the
Yeah.
Pharisees. That's what they had.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was a fantastic Pharisee.
Yeah,
I know I
so
was. But to what you said about the closer you walk with the Lord, the more you see your sin. My husband and I were in marriage counseling for a long time, and one of the times the counselor set us free because there were, seasons where it's like, yeah, you've kind of gone as far as you can
yeah,
go right now.
yeah, yeah.
He said to us, we were like, well, how are we going to know? Like when we've arrived, how are we going to know we're doing it right? And he's like, well, you'll know you've matured when your own sin bothers you more than the sin of your spouse.
Oh, wow,
And
that's
so
good,
that
Heather.
has been like just,
Oh,
key
that's so
because
good.
I think to go back to judgment, right? Like he had he had a whole army of judges and juries
Yes,
in
yeah.
inside my head. I mean, I think my
Uh-huh.
husband probably was the recipient of most of my
So
judgment
much. Yeah,
for
so
at least
much.
the first decade of marriage. It's like,
Yeah.
you didn't do this right. You didn't do
So,
this right. You didn't like, I can't believe you would do that. And you're going to do that. And of course, I let myself off free for all those things, but I kept a big scorecard for him. And so, yeah, I mean,
mhm.
that was the stop me in my tracks moment for like, okay, no,
Yeah.
no, I can't.
That's hypocrisy, isn't it? It's
Right.
judging somebody for the very things that I do. And I
Yeah.
mean, can I really say, I'll get at him for being messy or right, not being on time, but can I really say that I'm not messy and that I'm not late? No.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that is hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And it's also like the judging of the superficiality. That's another thing that we're warned
Mm,
against. Are we just judging? Are we assuming that we know somebody's heart, right?
mm,
Based on the superficial thing that we see. Like we're so quick to judge their motives and
mm,
their like that they weren't thinking of us or I'm
mm.
talking husbands, but and do we really know as much as
Right.
we think we know about people and the
Right.
ways that we, when we're holding court? Actually, while I was writing the book, I told you I was so just undone by my temptation to judge or to feel judged, and the Lord really prompted a lot of things that I needed to go back and think through and deal with,
Mm,
a lot of situations, as I was
mm,
studying and writing. And one of them was a friendship that I had had with a
mm,
woman. Her name's Renee. We'd been dear friends when our kids were little. And
mm,
then probably about 10 or 15 years ago, I had invited her to be on my prayer team because I go out and speak and I have people praying for me. And she didn't respond. And so
mm,
she wasn't going to be on the team.
mm.
And in my heart, I'm thinking like, what? Like I thought we were friends, like
Mhm,
apparently not. And then I started doing that courtroom thing. I'm like,
mhm,
I know why she doesn't want to be it because in her heart and mind, she is thinking, who does Shannon think she is?
mm,
Speaking, writing, who does
mm,
she think she is? She knows me. She
mm,
knows like I'm just an average girl. Like
mhm.
who does she think she is? And so then I started thinking like, I don't know if we're really that great of friends. And I just like I just pulled back and then I just pulled back a little more and life got busy. And I look like many, many times I've gone back to that in my mind of like her not choosing to be on that prayer team and
Mm,
judging what I thought I knew. I thought I knew what she was saying and thinking. And I was convicted. I was like, oh, I never even gave her a chance to defend her that
yeah.
thought or idea,
Right.
like, right, to respond to it. And so I did a very hard thing and I sent her a text message and I said,
Wow.
I need to apologize. I have judged your heart and your motives.
Mm,
Back when I asked you to be on that prayer team, I've assumed that this is what you were thinking and saying, and I just
mm.
confessed that to you. And I
Wow.
said, you can respond if you want. You don't have to. It is so far in the past, but I just know the Lord has convicted my heart of this.
Mm,
Well, Heather, she texted me back within like 30 seconds and was like,
Okay.
Shannon, oh my goodness, I am so glad you reached out because I have never, ever once in my heart
Mm.
judged like you that way. I think it's great what you're doing. I've never had one negative thought about it.
Wow.
And I'm so glad you asked me because no, that is
Wow.
not what I was thinking. She goes, I thought I was on the prayer team. What happened? She
Oh
goes,
no.
I just, I don't, maybe I missed an email or something. And oh my goodness.
Wow.
I started crying and I picked up the phone and
Mm.
called her and we had this amazing
Oh.
conversation where it was like, I am so sorry that
Mm.
I judged you. Like
Yeah.
judged, this superficial, I judged your heart, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know those things. I didn't know you were thinking those things. And she was just like, it's okay. I'm just glad we
Yeah.
could talk about it. And like we've kind of the Lord has uh just given us this refresh on our
Oh.
friendship. And she and her husband were both empty nesters. They came and stayed for us with us for a weekend, and it's
Okay.
just been precious.
Oh.
And I'm so happy about that. But I'm also like just I have this sadness of like how many things have I missed
Mm.
because of the judgment and the contempt that I hold in my
Yeah.
heart for other people, including my husband, right? Or
Yeah.
my kids or anyone. And so
Yeah.
man, I want to be free of that.
Yeah. And Shannon, I mean, what a great story because I think anyone who at the beginning of this episode, if they stuck around after deciding they weren't judgy, I
Yeah,
think
exactly.
hearing that story, you're like, oh, I've assigned motives. I didn't consider
Mhm.
that judgy. Oh,
Yeah,
but
right.
yes, you're right. That is just another way to say it, isn't it? Like,
Hmm.
oh.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
powerful. Well, hey, as we wrap up here today, tell us about kind of judgy. Like you said a little bit, like we kind of go through some Bible stories, but just like what's your heart for this book and like who needs to read it?
Yeah. Well, we are looking at finding mercy for myself and for other people.
Okay.
So that's really like you brought up that harsh judgment that we have for ourselves. And we find both of those in the story, both the overarching story of the Bible, but I think these six stories that we look at, there's three from the Old Testament and three from the New Testament, and all of them have judgment and mercy woven through
Mm,
them. But with each story, we've got a different lens where we're kind of looking at this from a different angle. And I just think stories package up such good truth in a way that accesses our hearts versus
mm,
just the right and wrong. Because I think,
mm,
when we're being kind of judgy, we just want to
mhm.
know those lines and,
Right.
like just get me on the right side of the line. But these stories don't allow that sort of response. They kind of mess with our hearts. And that's
Mm,
really, I think, helpful for us. So, yeah, so the characters that I looked at or the Bible stories were the flood, Noah, and then Rahab, Jonah, the Simon the Pharisee, and then the blind man,
okay.
and then the thief on the cross. So
Okay.
they're
Wow.
beautiful stories. I enjoyed it so much writing this book. And I mean, every chapter I was just undone by.
Mm,
But yeah, I'd love for you to pick up a copy. We've got a leader's guide. We have
okay.
different resources for you. There's a kind of judgy quiz if you're,
Ooh. Oh,
if you're
tell us where to find that.
wondering.
Everyone wants a
Yeah,
quiz.
yeah.
Shannon, where do we
Well,
find the quiz?
maybe, yeah. Well, we can maybe give a direct link, but it's at my site,
Okay.
shannonpopkin.com
Okay.
/judgy. You
Okay.
can find all the stuff. But yeah, take the quiz. And then once you take the quiz, you have this little heart check that I'll send you that you
Okay.
can keep on your phone or print out. And it really will get at some of those heart level questions
I
that
love
we all
that.
need to be processing. Yeah.
I love that. Well, and your book is it's out this week, so you go grab
Yeah,
one at Amazon. I haven't gotten to read this one yet, which I normally like to
that's
read before the
okay. Yeah.
interviews,
Yeah.
but I'm just going to tell you listeners that I endorse anything by Shannon Popkin. It's all
Aw.
good. So,
You're sweet.
she's written
You're
about
sweet.
control and comparison too, and it's all good. So, I know that this is going to be a great resource. So,
Oh, thanks,
Shannon,
Heather.
thank you for being on the show today.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching or listening. I hope something today has helped you stop comparing and start living. Bye bye.